next couple of hours to head off to the United States. You'll be in New York, you'll be on Wall Street, you'll be meeting the money men and the money women. What will you be saying to them? What's going to be your message?
I'll be saying that Ireland's open for business. The new government is taking a course of decisiveness in terms of making decisions about banks and about restructuring our economy to restore our public finances to good health. I'll be telling them that the corporate tax rate of 12.5% will not be changed from Ireland's point of view. And this has been a cornerstone of foreign direct investment in Ireland. It represents a trust between Ireland and investors from the United States. I'll be talking to banking interests in terms of the decisions that we've made about pillar banks and the deleveraging that's going to take place, which will allow for credit to be extended to business by banks, and also to work hard at rebuilding the reputation of this country internationally. We've had a if you like, a downgrading of interest in Ireland because of the fact that so many commitments and statements were made that weren't actually followed through. Because of the extent of the stress tests on the banks here, we've now realised the reality of the extent of the economic challenge facing the country. So I'll be explaining all that too.
But you also know that there is a great deal of scepticism, to say the least, about Ireland's capacity to get itself out of the hole, the financial hole that we're in, the levels of debt that we've taken on. And a lot of the ratings agencies and other commentators are saying that it's just not going to be possible for Ireland to move forward without some kind of default at some point in the near or medium term.
Well, there is no question about it, but that the country faces an exceptional economic challenge. Now, the Exchequer return figures for April will be published this afternoon. They will show that in the four main areas we're running ahead of target at about 600 million between income tax, VAT, corporation tax and excise. That's, if you like, a sign of confidence, and it's also an indication that while challenging, the targets set out can actually be met. If you like, it's the start of a long road to recovery here.
The government is to announce next week this jobs initiative, and at this stage it seems pretty clear that there will be some costs associated with it, but it's not clear how they're going to be funded. How's it going to be paid for? Well,
it's just being described as fiscally neutral. Before the election, when individual parties met with the Troika, the IMF EU delegation made it perfectly clear that within the overall parameters of the deal, that consideration would be given to changing elements of it, provided that they were more effective in terms of job creation, more aggressive in the sense of strengthening the economy and providing opportunities for employment. And that will all be spelled out by the Minister for Finance next Tuesday in the Dáil, when the government respond in respect of the jobs initiative.
Is it going to have to be paid for with some tax increases or spending cuts?
Yes, we've already made it clear that elements of this will be paid for by a levy in respect of pension funds that have been agreed with the industry, but the Minister will spell out all of that on Tuesday. And I don't hold this out as being the answer to all Ireland's economic problems, but it is going to give an indication of how you can actually stimulate our indigenous economy within the constraints that are here.
On the question of debt and on the question of bondholders, and you've made it clear, and Europe has made it clear, there's no question of burning the senior bondholders in AIB or in Bank of Ireland. But what's the situation in relation to senior debt in Anglo-Irish Bank and in Irish Nationwide?
They're in a different category than the two main pillar banks of Bank of Ireland and AIB. Remember that Europe was very much against even subordinated bondholders contributing anything in the beginning. And when we discussed this question with the Troika and the European Central Bank, obviously in holding out our commitment for two pillar banks, the question of not burning senior bondholders in those was a matter of some discussion. The Anglo and INBS were not subject to the bank stress tests. There has been no demand for further capital, but were that to arise, then obviously senior bondholders in both those wind-down banks are in a very different category than senior bondholders in AIB and Bank of Ireland, and the government would consider that seriously were that question to arise.
As we know, overnight Portugal has agreed a bailout. It's the third EU state to go into the fund, and the Portuguese are saying they've got a better deal than Ireland got. And where are we in relation to getting a better deal?
It's not a case of one deal being better than another. These deals are made out on the basis of the circumstances that apply in each individual country. Now, also these deals require unanimity and full agreement. We don't know the full extent of what's been agreed in respect of Portugal yet, and this will have to be agreed at the 16th, 17th of May meeting of the Ministers for Finance. I'd make this point, Brian. At the meeting in Brussels of the heads of government, it was agreed that countries within the bailout package could have a reduction rate in interest applied to them. Greece was not in that package, but an interest rate was agreed because of their particular circumstances. Conditions were being sought in respect of Ireland, and the agreement of the heads of government was that it would be moved on now by the Ministers for Finance because the stress tests on the bank results were not available at that time. So we're pursuing that, and obviously for the meeting of the Ministers for Finance on the 16th, 17th of May, the full detail of what is in the agreed package for Portugal will become evident, but that has to receive unanimous support.
Okay, two other matters, if I might briefly, before we conclude. The first is in relation to the proposals for electoral reform that have been announced today. Specifically, if I could focus on this question of fewer TDs, which is your intention. How many fewer TDs?
I can't answer that question for you now, but the principle of a reduction in the numbers in the Dáil is accepted. We've got to wait until the figures in respect of the census become a little more clear. The Minister announced today his intention to set up an electoral commission to limit the spends in respect of the presidential election and to deal with the ridiculous situation of by-elections being held over by governments for a very long period. So when the figures from the census emerge and the Commission starts its work, the government obviously in its own time will make a decision in respect of the numbers in the Dáil to be reduced for the next general election.
And just finally, in relation to the killing of Osama bin Laden, which you responded to with, I think, satisfaction. You said over the weekend you were satisfied that he'd been removed as a threat. We now learn that he wasn't armed when the killing took place. Do you have any reservations about the operation that was involved in killing him?
I can't speak for the military operation that took place in respect of the killing of Osama bin Laden, but obviously his activities and his organisation Al-Qaeda were responsible for mass murders in Bali and Madrid and London, and obviously the Twin Towers in New York, with direct implications for Irish citizens and their family groupings. From that point of view, there are a number of flash points around the world where democratic politics has got to intervene. I suppose it is fair to say that the Al-Qaeda organisation has been sidelined to an extent in the last number of years because of the pressure of a different element of young people in the Middle East wanting a sort of European model of democracy, and doing so by peaceful means in the case of Algeria and Egypt, but with a difference obviously in Libya. From that point of view, I stress the point that vigilance is obviously necessary all over the world, and I hope that can be carried through to a point where you have an end to that particular brand of activity.
Taoiseach, thanks for talking to us on 6-1.
Thank you, Brian.